Sometimes I feel like a fish out of water. Other times, a blue fish, part of a beautiful aquarium. Either way, I am still swimming and smiling the only way I know how. I want to welcome you all to the second annual Fish Out of Water storytelling event. This was a tradition that was started by the Leadership Academy Cohort 1, which we have members of, so thank you all very much. And a tradition that's continued on by Leadership Academy Cohort 2, which is the group that I'm a part of. So if we could quickly just give a round of applause for Leadership Academy, that would be wonderful. And before I forget, if anybody's interested though in the Leadership Academy, there's information in your program about next year's program for that as well. I'm going to make sure I get all of my notes. Whether you are a part of our School of Fish, the School of Fish of our storytellers, or you were just swimming by and decided to join us, we are deeply grateful for all of you being here. I mean, look how many seats are filled. We are very, very excited about this. So thank you all very much for coming. This is an event that is born out of love, out of hard work, and out of our innate desire to be connected to one another. Yes, hard work by the folks that I mentioned in Leadership Academy, but truly the hard work of our storytellers who have chosen to put themselves out there and share their stories with you today. So, we will get to that very shortly, I promise you. But if we could quickly, before you even know who they are, unless you read ahead in your program, can we give a round of applause to our storytellers? Let me give you just a little bit of housekeeping and then I will give way to the reason that you all are here. So we do have, the way that our program is going to work, we have a couple of components that are happening today. Primarily it's going to be live storytelling that's going to be up here. Because we had so many wonderful stories, storytellers, watch how I'm using this mic so professionally so you can understand how to make it work for you when you're up here. We had so many wonderful submissions. We have a number of live storytellers. So to make sure that we are able to give everyone their due, their time, their ability to share that, we are not going to have an intermission for our program. If you do need to get up and go to the bathroom, you don't need a hall pass. It's totally fine. You're going to go through that door right there. It's conveniently marked restrooms, so that makes it easier. And so what we're going to do is have our live storytellers come up. You'll see in the program, that is not the order that they will be coming up. It's alphabetical order. It was easier for us that way, but we wanted to make sure that we gave you a little bit of background on who our folks are. We also have some digital stories, or I'm sorry, some digital photos that we're running before. They will also be running after. They have captions on there. They are from students from Urban Peak. Do we have any folks from Urban Peak that are here today? Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate that ability to connect with our greater Denver community as well through this event. There's some information about Urban Peak, who they are, the services that they have, and where they fit in our community in your program as well. And then additionally, we have some other pieces that are over here. We have these smaller photographs, just smaller in size, that are here, and these are also by folks that are connected with Urban Peak. We have a quilt, and there's some information on there by a professor that is here on campus. And then we also have a piece of art that is here by one of our staff members, John Davis, who is also an artist, obviously. There's some information, there's some business cards there. John will be there near his piece of art post this event. And there's also a portfolio of some other pieces of John's art. So please take some time to check out all of the pieces that we were able to do to be able to include the way that folks wanted to share their story. I'm getting through, I promise. So there will not be intermissions. We ask that if you do need to leave, it's perfectly fine. We would love if you could stay with us through the whole thing, but feel free to leave out of any door. If you can wait, our stories are going to be between 5 and 8 minutes. If it's possible to wait until there's a break in that, it makes it a little less distracting. On that note, turn off your cell phones, right? Like at the movies, like I'm the dancing cell phone that's like, turn me off. So do that. If you do have to leave, that's weird, I get that. If you do have to leave, you've all got programs. Make sure, we have a survey that's in there. I'll plug this again at the end for those of you who are able to stay with us, but make sure that you take that survey. We will have a reception at the end that will be in this room. So if you have to leave and come back, that's also totally fine. I think that is all for right now. You get to see me at the end, so let's clearly another reason to stick around. But without further ado, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we are going to get right into our storytellers.
So my name is Jordan Coulter. My story is, I'm not supposed to be here, am I? Growing up, I was never a very adventurous person. As a kid, I would often kick and scream when my parents took me out places. Sharing a car in high school was pretty easy because I didn't have a lot of places to go. In college, a generous number of my Friday nights consisted of weekly scheduled World of Warcraft sessions. It never really bothered me. I felt no need to break barriers or step where I shouldn't. I knew who I was, I knew what I liked, and I didn't see much reason to change it. I'm not really sure when the transition happened, but at some point between graduating college in 2013 and a cloudless June night some 2 years later, it dawned on me that I had changed basically everything. I no longer knew really who I was or what I liked. Either way, it was too late to turn back at that point. I'd already taken off my shoes, and the Imam had begun chanting in front of the packed crowd. I was sitting in the Masjid al-Nur, the Mosque of Light, in the center of Rahat, Israel, a Bedouin city roughly 7,000 miles away from my apartment in Fort Collins. I found my way here through a series of decisions that were not super typical for me. I applied for a teaching fellowship in a foreign country. I accepted that fellowship. I left my girlfriend and my cats for a summer. I moved into an apartment with 2 roommates I'd never met in a city I'd never been to. And when a colleague asked me if I'd like to visit a mosque during Ramadan, I said, sure. As the prayer went on and the men, crouched over an array of prayer mats, rose and bowed and chanted, it continued to dawn on me just how really out of my element I was here. I spoke a fair bit of Arabic, but the dialect spoken in Rahat was basically unintelligible to me. Most people there actually speak pretty good Hebrew. My Hebrew consisted of what I remembered from preteen Hebrew school, which was enough to about read a bus sign. I was also a foreigner in a place that was not very accustomed to foreigners. While Israel in general is a very tourist-friendly country, tourists definitely don't go to Rahat. It is the poorest municipality in the country, and its population of very traditional conservative Muslims are very socially isolated between Jews who want nothing to do with them and Arabs who don't want to be associated with them. In fact, it was so secluded that on multiple occasions as I was walking through the streets, people would try to help me get on a regional bus because they assumed I was lost. My long hair especially stood out in a culture where men generally keep their hair buzzed very tight and women keep their hair wrapped up. Nowhere was this clash of hairstyles more apparent than in the mosque as dozens of male heads bobbed up and down in unison. Beyond the language and the culture, however, I felt particularly out of place there because I'm Jewish, sitting in a mosque in a city where the term Jew rests somewhere between outsider and oppressor, depending on who you're talking to. I didn't openly advertise this fact about me, but I never lied if asked. Many of the elementary school students I worked with seemed completely shocked at my very existence. One 4th grade girl, after politely asking if I was a Muslim, remarked to her friend in Arabic that she didn't know there were Jews in America. With the adults, it was a lot more complicated. Israelis like to remind me that much of their society is effectively tribal. The word they use in Hebrew equates to like big family. There were many, many Israelis who didn't quite understand why I'd come all that way to work with a different tribe, when there were plenty of Jews in Israel who could use my time and expertise. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a bit of this on my home side of the Atlantic as well, though it was never quite spoken so bluntly. So my presence in that mosque was fundamentally wrong in a sense, on so many levels. I was not an adventurous person. I did not go on trips like this. I did not understand this language or this world. I did not belong in this place or with this group of people on this month. Yet there I was. Doubt began to trickle in, so I started itching to leave before the prayer was up so I could kind of get out without making a scene. My mind began to drift back to the places I normally would have been on a Friday night, somewhere far from there and somewhere far more familiar. Before I knew it, the prayer was over, and the whole of the congregation rose and started to turn my direction. I was soon greeted by one of the local patriarchs who, in admirable English, welcomed me to the city. I met uncles and brothers and cousins of the students and teachers I'd been working with, and eventually the Imam came around and gave me a tour of the mosque, the 2nd largest in Israel, he told me, after Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. As we left the building, an English teacher for one of the local high schools offered me out to his house for tea, which he effectively refused to let me turn down. Under the glowing Ramadan lights and engulfed in this chatter of friends and colleagues, it dawned on me that I didn't really mind being so out of my element. All those years cloistered in my routines and my comfort zones seemed a faint and fuzzy memory at that point. The best part of it all was, if you had asked me right then and there, the obvious question, which is what prompted all this? Why did you do all this? I honestly don't know if I could have come up with an answer. I'd spent so much time and energy convincing myself that I was who I thought I was. The key to changing it all, I found out, was just to stop thinking so hard about these tough questions of where I belong or what I like or who I am. Once I did that, I realized that I could open myself up to a far more interesting set of questions, like where I might belong or what I might like or who I could be. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I'm Glenn Davis and I'm here to encourage you to stumble towards your dreams. This day was not just like any other work day, this day was different, where I had become fully depleted and exhausted, feeling claustrophobic for my choice of a career path. The work in front of me looked like shackles keeping me chained to a never-ending cycle of slavery. So I had to get up, I had to leave. I left the office for some fresh air. And as I was walking out, I saw the mayor of the town coming towards me. He was only 10 feet away, and so I did what any mature professional would do. I put a smile on my face. I put my hand out for a greeting, and ever so elegantly, I tripped off the curb and smack, hit him dead on in the chest. Not even Napoleon Dynamite could have made it more awkward and more embarrassing. And if it were not for his loving arms and his wonderful embrace, we would have both ended up as casualties in the street. At the CPA firm where I worked, since that moment, they referred to me, oh, there's Glenn, who took out the mayor of the town with one fell swoop. By the way, that's the town that we were auditing at the moment. I was a fish out of water. I chose that CPA firm out of college because I thought it would give me prestige, it would give me a title, it would give me recognition that my identity longed for. But I was chasing after someone else's dreams and not my own. You see, my coworkers and my boss, oh, they loved their work. They longed to go to seminars where they learned about new tax regulations or how to do audit standards. They memorized financial ratios. Financial ratios, who does that? Like, my gosh, that was not me. I wanted to be with people. Trey and I shared the same workspace, about the size of this right here. And it was a really blessing in disguise because he, like me, regretted the career choice for our lives. We secretly conspired to quit our jobs and go enroll in a truck driving academy and then drive a big rig across the country, the freedom of the open road. That would be our escape. We worked long hours, 14 hours, 15 hours a day, sometimes on the weekends. And because of that, because we had our own space, we took liberties with how we took our breaks. And one of the liberties was we created a game called Who Could Stick the Most Paper Airplanes in the Ceiling Tiles Above Us. So the ceiling was 7 feet. The tiles were mushy and old. And of course we had lots of paper around us. And neither of us were motivated to work, so it made sense for us to play that game. And one day, during a very heated contest, we each had about 6 airplanes up there. So imagine 12 paper airplanes stuck in a ceiling tile. And without warning, no notice, the boss comes walking in suddenly, right when Trey was about to launch the tiebreaker airplane. And on cue, as if we were in a Shakespearean tragedy, he stood and stopped underneath the paper airplane, didn't know it. And he was doling out stuff for us to do. To this day, I have no clue what he said. All I know is that only a few inches separated his head from the aft end of that airship, and only a few inches separated me from being fired, which, if that would have happened, would have been a gift from the gods to end my torment, and I could go to paradise and drive a big rig across the country and enjoy the freedom of the open road. Indeed, I was a fish out of water. So today I'll leave you with this. When you fall, and you will, I pray that someone is there to catch you. especially if you are a fish out of water. And two, when you stumble, and you will stumble, I pray that you stumble in the direction of your dreams. And I encourage you this too. Sometime, make a paper airplane and just see how far it will fly. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Pardon me, I'm a little sick, which of course that happens right before you're about to speak to a large crowd and you're nervous. But I'm going to continue. My story does not have a title, but it is a moment that changed my life and was also probably a moment I should have never been a part of altogether. I was sitting on the floor of a cafe called the Drawing Room, 2 blocks down the street from the study abroad housing in Cape Town, South Africa. The moment I first comprehended my cultural identity. It was a week after an agreement was reached between the University of Cape Town and student protesters, who were protesting rising tuition fees and the decolonization of tertiary education. In honor of the agreement, the Drawing Room dedicated a weekly poetry open mic night to provide the protesters with a safe space to share their intimate feelings. Out of anticipation of a big crowd, I arrived at the reading an hour before it began. So there I was, a white American, sitting at the foot of the stage, the best seat in the house, nursing a glass of Pinot Noir and carelessly socializing with friends as the eagerness to hear beautiful poets slowly spoiled into a lingering suspense. It was raining, and the room filled to the point where half of the audience awaited in the street without covering, peering through the window, separated from their own unified grievance. The host came out to introduce herself. She made eye contact with my group, settled at her feet. She then turned to us. You white bodies here in the front, please make room for the black bodies that have suffered, are still suffering, and will suffer more in their lifetime than you could ever comprehend. You are always everywhere. You have always had the privilege of being in the front row. But this time, this space is for us. So make your way out of the building. Thank you, even though I should not be saying thank you at all. Shocked from being singled out based on the color of my skin for the first time in my life, my friend stood and left the cafe. I watched as they walked into the light of the street, their white figures engulfed by the rain, as I took an uninhabited corner of the room. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isaiah Wright Wiggins, and my story is called A Fish Out of the Rio Grande. So, in order to understand my story, I really have to give you a bit of backstory, too. I grew up in a small town in New Mexico called Bernalillo. We were only 8,000 strong and over 400 years old, and we were literally a town at the time for God. We still believed in so many old world customs and values and virtues. You regarded every elder with a bow and with a proper title if you didn't know them by name. And you always had to make sure that you treated the young people with respect as well. It was a town where everybody regarded each other in such a way that you kissed your family and you hugged your friend. It was very intimate and very open. We were a town built with adobe, and I had never considered building my life besides my town hall. And so it was very comfortable for not only me in my 18 years, but also for the multiple generations of my family that have lived there far before me and never moved. However, when I became 18, I discovered that I was a bit bored with the town. There wasn't really much advancement, there wasn't really much to do. And so I decided to apply everywhere in this country and apply to over 20 different schools. And out of everything, I picked the closest one, which was the University of Denver. And so, with my grandmother and my mother in tow, we immediately ran out here to help me move in when I first got accepted. It was a grand old time, and we had never seen anything like it. It was the first time we had ever seen a skyline and a public transport, and people of every race and creed and nationality. Our town was all Hispanic or Native American. I had never seen an authentic white person in my life. And so it was a grand old time, and everything was nothing more than a wonderland, an adventure. And we moved in, and everything was wonderful. And I even remarked that my dormitory room was actually bigger than any bedroom in my house back home, to which my roommates scoffed and laughed a bit, because it was unheard of, such a cramped room being bigger than anything else. But it was true. And so we just continued on as we do. And when we had gone out to go have lunch, I was carrying my grandmother on my arm down Evans, and we found a place to eat. However, my grandmother and my mother seemed so insulted and so hurt somehow. And I had asked them what was wrong, and they had said they had gotten glances and stares, which I hadn't noticed. But they said people were questioning us. I recognized that stare is the stare of somebody judging color. My grandmother is a darker skinned woman than I am. God knows why, I'm a bit pale. But I never got much sun, even though I was in Mexico. And so she said that we were judged for walking hand in hand, a dark skinned woman and a young white man, even though I'm not white in the slightest. And I didn't really understand it myself, but as I walked her back, I did realize that there were these glances, these questions that people were asking without actually saying a word. It wasn't until later on that I realized that there were far more differences than I had ever realized. People over there in the Daniel School, as most people know, have lived lavish lives and done many things. I, on the other hand, this was my adventure. And I had seen all the architecture of the university, the groundskeeping, the professors and teachers, and everything. It was just a stunning view for me. Everything just seemed far beyond what I ever deserved in life. But so many kids around me would scoff or criticize, and I never understood it. And I finally had to ask one of them, how can you judge this place in such a harsh light? And they said, well, compared to my private school, or compared to this university I visited abroad, or this or that, all of this was lackluster. And I had never really comprehended that this could be lackluster. This was the pinnacle of high society for me. Everything was grand, everything was made of brick. I had never seen this. And so it made me really realize that so many people had different lives than I had. Eventually I did find a job, first with the donation hotline with the university, then I moved on to the cafe right outside this door, and then I moved 2 feet away to the UTS office. So I have went leaps and bounds in my time. But in my time, I did realize that my differences were becoming far more apparent. There was a day that I was serving somebody coffee during the midterm season, and every student in the world knows you always have to drink coffee, you always have to complain when it's midterm season. And so many people came up to me talking about the stresses and the worries of studying for a midterm. And I would always sympathize with them because I myself was a student as well, and I would always tell them that. But one day, somebody had come up and was griping about midterms, and I said, oh, I understand it. I don't get out till 10, and I still have to study myself. And trying to make conversation, I don't think they meant any ill will, but they said, where do you study? Colorado Community? No. And they said, Metro? And I was like, no, I literally sit 2 rows behind you. Yeah, the same professor. But they just couldn't believe it. It was baffling to them that somebody in their own class and their own university would be working at this job. I thought it was a one-off thing until, as a bittersweet gesture of goodwill, the student body president at the time had come to speak to us at the cafe, saying that he wanted to thank us on behalf of all the students here at the university, that it was our services that helped them study and them to maintain their energy. And it was sweet that we were being thanked, but on the other hand, it was, I'm one of you, aren't I? I'm a student with you. But he didn't regard me as such. I was just the outsider helping serve. It was something that I had never really comprehended until that moment. And then as time progressed, I learned without a doubt that there was a major difference in our lives. But I have found that my differences in life, sometimes seen with pity or judgment or ridicule, have actually been events in my life that have formed me and made me who I am today. And I greatly admire how I am today. I've gotten so many compliments as to the ways I speak and the ways that I acknowledge people, and my morals and values and other things that my grandmother had taught me through her life. And I realized that I was richer than any of these people. Their money and their trips and everything were so lavish, but they couldn't afford a manner to save their life. And so I realized that I am indeed much more wealthy than any of these people. But I'm still a fish out of water, a fish out of the Rio Grande. And thank you all for your time.
So hi, I'm Daniel. I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. Point of information, no one believes me, and no one believed me growing up that I was from Nebraska. And actually, when I was in college, the first question I got asked is like, so where in Canada are you from? I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, it's the way you speak. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we're going to lab. And I'm like, oh yeah, the laboratory. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I grew up on a lot of BBC TV. And so like, I love Doctor Who and like Monty Python. And the thing is that it highlights a point about growing up in Omaha. If you love Omaha, this is not going to be a good story about Omaha. You can tell those stories another time. This is mine. So it was always pointed out to me as a kid that I never fit in. Like everyone's like, oh, you're too weird, you're too excited, you're too this, you're too that. You don't fit in. And so growing up, it's always like, well, what can I trace that back to? And I'm like, well, first thought that came to my head when I thought about this fish on water is like, well, I can remember the first time I acted like a fish. My dad worked in the stockyards. And I was in the backseat of the car alone. This is about when I was 4 or 5, and there was this blue flashlight thing. I'm like, what is this? And me being the precocious child, like, I need to know. And it had this like stock, white stock with little metal prong at the top that had this little wire going up to the very top. And I'm like, what does this do? Push the button? It was a cattle prod. Shocked myself, and I was basically like flopping around the backseat like a fish out of the water. So yeah, I've always had these like moments in my life, especially growing up, where it's like it's always reminded me of belong. And my mom likes to refer to it as I am cursed, and she says this literally and very seriously. She's like, you're cursed. And I'm like, why do you say that? She's like, because bad things happen when you're around. And I'm like, oh. Well, and that's the point of these kind of stories, where it's just like you have to learn how to laugh at these situations. Otherwise, you're just going to wind up crying your eyes out. But I mean, but my friends who know me well, they're like, well, it's not that you're cursed, you're just unconventional. And I try to think of it as, well, there's a Chinese curse that's very appropriate for you. May you live in interesting times. And if you've grown up in the Midwest, you know when someone responds, oh, that's interesting, it's kind of like this like rhetorical black hole of meaning, where it's like, oh, that's interesting. Another rhetorical feature, if you grow up in the Midwest, you know at least 40 different ways of saying, oh. Oh, 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 oh. Not going to go on there. But it can go on. And so this brings me to my actual story about like having grown up, like here I am in my neighborhood in Midtown, and the whole landscape for this story was so completely foreign and alien to me. And so this is the first winter after I got my driver's license. And I'm riding around with 2 neighbors. I'm about 16, one is 15, she's in the seat next to me, in the back seat is a 13-year-old. And we're out being idiots. And what I mean by that is, we decided, oh, we're gonna go look at Christmas lights. This is like right in the thick of this, right after, it was beginning of January. And so we're out there, and never really driven in a car together before, and we're like, oh, this is so cool, this is so awesome, we're doing, we got freedom. And we're looking at Christmas lights, and we're driving along, and all of a sudden, friend A, in the seat next to me, is like, flash your lights. I'm like, what do you mean? And she reaches over and like flashes the lights, so my highlights come on. And so we're just kind of like, oh, we think this is really cool. Look at what the car can do. And so we're driving along and we're like flashing people, which is just like, oh, I can't believe we did that. Well, one car in particular took particular exception to our little rambunctious idiotic behavior and stopped. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, what do I do? And my friend next to me goes, well, just drive around them. So we drive around them, and all of a sudden they start flashing their high beams at us. And so we're like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, well, I'm gonna keep driving. They're continuing to flash their lights. And I'm going, I don't know what to do here. And so I'm like, well, I'm just gonna stop and let them pass. Sure. And they don't. So I'm like, okay. Well, so I'm like, all right, we're just gonna go home now. Sure. And so we drive, we get back to our street, and I'm like, they're still following us. I don't want them to know where we live. So I'm just gonna stop the car right at the bottom of the block. At which point in time, the car, and it looked like a Buick. Like, I mean, it was this like big boat of a car. All of a sudden, 4 doors open, and like 4 people get out, and they are like pretty big. And all of a sudden, my friend next to me goes, "They've got guns!" And I'm like, oh, oh. And so I gun it. And meanwhile, girl in the back seat, the younger sister, 13, she just drops to the floor, and she is screaming. You know, like a young kid who starts crying, where it's just kind of like, and then it turns into this siren wail. And so it's like in the back seat on the floor, and he's hearing this. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And anyway, so yeah, these 4 dudes, I'm assuming they're dudes, they were just like big, blocky figure shadows, but I saw the glint of the weapons in their hands. And they all got in, and I tore off, and they started chasing us. So here we are in residential, like, Bellevue, Nebraska, and all of a sudden, it's like we're being chased by people with guns. And I'm suddenly going 80 miles an hour down residential areas, you know, doing like 25 miles an hour. I never wanted to see police more in my entire life. I wanted to be arrested because I am driving 80 miles an hour down a 25 mile an hour speed limit area. And it's the middle of winter, we're all screaming. The car is like behind me and like following me, and I'm ducking, I'm going in and out. I finally make it on the freeway. Meanwhile, there's like all this like crying, screaming, heavy breathing, and I'm going, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And if you know anything about driving in cold and there's a lot of moisture in the car, the front glass is starting to freeze over. And so me being genius, I'm rolling down my window and like I have my head out the window with like cold air blasting, and I'm like looking like a dog with driving down. Finally, I make it back on the highway, and I'm like going, oh yes, there's going to be a cop. There's going to be a speed trap. There's got to be a speed trap. The car starts pulling up next to me. I turn and I'm like, oh, that's the car, and that's a shotgun. And first thought that went through my head was watermelon. I'm like, wait, what? Watermelon. Because my family had a farm where we would go and shoot guns. And watermelon, so I'm picturing in my head as a watermelon. But so I'm driving 80 miles an hour down the highway, and get to an off-ramp where I'm like, I'm gonna lose them again. Well, the thing about winter is like they put down gravel. So here I am going 80 miles an hour off an on-ramp, and I spin out, completely spin out. Wind up facing the car that is chasing us. And it's like this little like Mexican standoff where the car is coming up the on-ramp, and they're just like, we're gonna get you, we're gonna get you. And I'm like, oh crap. And so I gun, and it's like a game of chicken. Like, I ran at them, and they blinked, went off to the side, and I got down to the end of the on-ramp, and I saw the car behind me, like, that was chasing us, and they're like trying to turn around, like they're trying to like back up, and meanwhile all the cars that are coming on are like, like they're honking and blaring, and anyway, I get back to the bottom, like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. So me, the preternatural, like, oh, I went through driver's ed, I get to the bottom of the off-ramp, and I'm like, I just turn on my light. I'm going that way. So that's how I lost them. And so we wind up going into Iowa and like just completely mortified. And I wind up just finding some strange little off-road place that's in a field. And we just like stay there for like an hour, just in this cold cornfield in the dark, praying that they didn't like turn around and find us. And I just remember the sky was so beautiful that night, perfectly clear sky. But we did make curfew, didn't make it back home, no one was hurt. And when I got home, my parents were like, so, how'd your evening go? I'm like, well, it was interesting. Thank you.
I'm Anna Scheer. Title of my story is Family Portrait. It was a selfie, actually. The three of our heads kind of crammed together. My wife and I with our little 4-year-old son with his little smile looking at the camera. We were at Lakeside Amusement Park on the little train that goes around the lake. And we were just beaming. It's a wonderful photo. That's the one that I decided to grab on our way out the door to the Capitol building to testify for the Civil Unions Bill. We walk into the chambers and expect to find a place to sit. A place to sit is kind of important because when you're testifying for a bill, especially a popular one like that, it could be hours before they call your name. But there was no place to sit. But that wasn't what bothered me. What bothered me is that every seat was filled with someone with a white t-shirt with the words, "Protecting Marriage," across the front. That sea of white was like a wave crashing down on me. This evidence of hate and belief that I didn't deserve the same basic human rights that they did. Now, my wife had come in with me, but she needed to step out to park the car, go to the bathroom. I don't remember what. All I remember is standing there with my portrait, like a shield. And I noticed that people had brought their children to witness this parade of hate. And in fact, there was a little boy sitting just in front of me, a little older than our son, who had turned around and was looking at me and at our portrait. And I said to him, "This is our little boy. We love him. We're his parents. And we just want to be able to take care of him and each other the same way that your parents take care of each other and take care of you." He just gave me a blank look and turned to his mom, who had nothing to say. I continued to stand there with my portrait, my shield, when a large woman came up to me with a red t-shirt on and the words Unitarian Universalist across the front, enveloped me in this big hug and said to me, "You're not alone." And it was then that I noticed all the people standing along the edges around the back and the sides of the chambers wearing red, the color of our side. Fortunately, my wife came back in a few minutes later. I was never so glad to see her. And we waited, standing along the wall there until it was our turn to testify, telling our story so that maybe one person could change their mind. Because we knew year after year, the leadership was sending this bill to what they considered a kill committee. The idea being that they knew that they had the votes, that the bill would stop in its tracks there and never make it to the House floor where everyone could vote. Well, the next year, we had enough votes of the whole legislature that we knew it would pass, so long as we could get it through that kill committee. And one mind was changed, and it did make it to the floor, and we did win that year. And now, over our mantle, we have a new photo, a family photo, that is not just my wife and I and our son, but dozens of other people and a rabbi and the mayor. witnessing our legal union. But of course, it's not that piece of paper that so many people worked so hard to get that makes us a family. It's all those hundreds of thousands of little moments. Thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Chen Yuguo. I came from China in the Mongolia province. It's my honor to stand here. And today I will tell a story. It's named Find a Light During the Darkness. So here is kind of window, and here is the door. There is street light every time I walk into my door. I will go from door to the window. I will back like 10 times because I didn't do anything. I didn't know how can I do anything. I'm kind of boring and lonely. I just know what should I do because I left family. I can't remember when I graduated from junior high school. My father told me that if you want a more opportunity for your life, for your future, you can go to America. I can give you this chance. You have to go to Beijing International School. You have to study by yourself. We will not come live with you. So I said, yes, I need more chance. So I studied in that room. But every weekend, I never thought I hate weekend. I used to like them, but I hate them during that time because every person, every classmate in my school, they all love school. They just back to home, but I have no company, no classmates. Even my roommate left from me because she lived in Beijing. She has to find family. So every time I walk to the window and I grab a cigarette, and I start smoking. I was only 15 years old. I started because I feel lonely. I can't do anything. I don't know how can I get through this weekend. So one day, I walked to the window and I grabbed a cigarette again, and I told myself, it's not you. You can't live you just like that. You have to change it. So I throw it. I need to find a friend. So on Monday, I walked to the class and I searched everywhere in my class, and there is a girl named Jessica who is very nice to me during a long time. And this time she just break up with her boyfriend. So I think it's my time getting. I go to her desk and ask her, I know you've been very surfing this time, so do you want to switch chat with me after class? And she said yes. So we have 3 weeks. Every day when we finish class, we have speech chat in our dorm room. And finally, a weekend, she invited me to go with dinner with her mom in her house. So I said, yes, finally, I get it. So we cooked together at that night, and we even drink a lot because in China, we allowed to drink even when you are teenagers. So we drink a lot. Both of 3 get drunk, and I talk a lot to her mom. I even get a lot of talk to my own mother, but I talk a lot to her mom. And we have very long chat. After 1 hour, we realized that Jessica is just gone. We can't find her. So her mom asked me to go downstairs to check with her. So I get a little drunk, but I have to calm down myself because I'm pretending I'm not drunk. So I go to upstairs and search everywhere, every room in the upstairs. I can't find her. I didn't know where she is. And when I want to just go to upstairs, I realized there is restroom. I didn't search it. So I walk in, and you will never believe what I saw. There is something, I think it's Pooh beside the toilet, and she's just doing like that. Who do that? I just get shocked at the moment I walk in the door. Who did that? And I asked her, Jessica, why you put me outside the toilet? It's just beside the toilet. And she said to me, "You're very drunk, well." No, I just spit out, but I want to have a toilet. oh yeah, that's God, it's not Pooh. So I started cleaning up and asked her mom clean up together. And I grabbed her to the bed. And after we clean up the restroom, she already fall asleep like little baby. So I go to upstairs with her mom, and I hold her hand and I told her, Mrs. Wang, you are really nice to me, and I really thank for this dinner. You guys make me feel home again. I'm not lonely. I'm not the only one in Beijing. I feel family. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. So this past fall I went abroad to Morocco, and this was originally a blog post, but I turned it into a story. So when I was in Morocco, I was lucky enough to be there during the holiday of Eid, which is this amazing holiday that's usually 2 to 3 days long. It honestly depends. And it's celebrating when Abraham was going to sacrifice his son Isaac / Ishmael, whatever you believe. And God was like, you should do this to show how devout you are to me. And he was like, okay. And then he was just about to sacrifice his son, and God was like, wait, you've shown me enough. And so he gave him a sheep to sacrifice instead. And so in a lot of Muslim countries, they sacrifice sheep or other farm animals. And in Morocco, which is like a 95% Sunni Muslim country, they do that. And I was really lucky to experience that with my host family, but that's like a different story within itself. But during this time, you spend a lot of time with your family. It's like basically Christmas. And that was really cool for me because I had spent most of my time in Morocco thus far with a lot of Americans. Family in Morocco doesn't just mean like blood relatives, it literally just means like someone you met on the street, your neighbor, like a loved one, anyone. And so the 3 days were spent like going from house to house to house of different host family friends, and there were people like constantly going in and out the door, and it was really cool, and everyone was super eager to talk to me, which was awesome and something I just experienced throughout my entire time there. But there was a particular conversation that I had with a family friend that really had an impact on me. So we were sitting out at tea, which is a tradition in Morocco. It happens between lunch and dinner. And there were like 10 of us around the table, and there was this couple who came in, and they were speaking like flawless French to each other, but they were also speaking Darija, which is the Moroccan dialect of Arabic to my family, so I was like, where are you from? But I think they were Moroccan. And the guy spoke perfect English, and, well, nearly perfect, and he was like, where are you from? And I was like, I'm American. And right off the bat, he was like, what do most Americans think of Muslims? And I was like, because I really didn't know how to respond. It was the first time someone had been super direct with me. I hadn't had like a confrontational experience like that before. And I didn't want to hurt my host family's feelings, and I also didn't want to lie to them. And half the room didn't understand what he said to me because most people didn't speak English. So his partner was like, what did you just say to her? And then he repeated what he said, and she was like, why would you say that? And then it slowly was like translated throughout the room, and then suddenly it was completely silent, and everyone was staring at me. And it was like, and this is what I originally wrote in my blog post, it was like, when your drunken uncle at Christmas says he's voting for Trump in the next election, and I had no idea that Trump was gonna win the election at the time, but it's fine. So finally, I was like, it's not good. And I thought he would be shocked, but I could tell he knew what I was gonna say. He just wanted to hear what I wanted to say. And then his shoulders kind of like went down a little, and he leaned in towards me, and I was like, I think most Americans' perceptions of Muslims are heavily based off this like homogenized depiction that the media portrays. And then I was like, and I think a lot of it has to do with what people associate with 9/11. A lot of people associate 9/11 with Islam, and I personally do not. And I know that that's not a great representation of the religion of Islam, but as soon as I said that, I didn't say that part that I personally didn't believe it. He was like, wait. And he intervened, and he was like, I'm gonna tell you something, and if it hurts your feelings, I'm not sorry. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, I'm not sorry that 9/11 happened. I was like, okay. And he was like, my people didn't commit that act. Muslims, real Muslims, would never do that. This is what Islam is about. And he gestured to my host family throughout the table, and he was like, friends, family, people sharing things, love, that's what Islam is about. And at first, I was like, what? Because I was confused because he didn't say it in the best English, but English wasn't his like first, second, or third language, so props to him for even speaking English. And I thought he meant at first that he wasn't sorry that 9/11 happened because the US deserved it, which obviously would have been super problematic, but that's not what he meant at all. He just meant that real Muslims, Moroccans, Muslim people in general, would never ever commit something like that. And my time in Morocco really taught me that Muslims, genuine Muslims, and the religion of Islam overwhelmingly just teaches people to be kind and happy and nice to other people, and he was right. And I think the biggest thing I learned from that is I never considered myself to be an Islamophobic person, and I still don't. But as much as you try and resent those social constructs, they'll always be a part of you, and you don't really realize that until you're confronted with them face to face. So being an ally for someone, it's a development process, and it's totally ongoing, and whether that's for like the Muslim community or the LGBTQ community, it's something you have to do your whole life. And my time in Morocco was a great opportunity for me to learn that, and I'm really grateful for it. So thanks.
Hey everyone, my name is Miriam Estrada, and this is Eu não falo português. I don't know Portuguese. So I remember just sitting at the airport. I was about to be the first one in my family to fly out of the country. So I was trying to keep all this kind of really excited. I was trying to keep that from going into being nervousness. And I had gotten there pretty early. I put my headphones on. I was reading a book, and I was trying not to really pay attention to what was going on around me. But slowly the seats started filling up with other people, and I heard them speaking Portuguese, and I was kind of excited because this is the first time I ever heard it live. People had told me that I would be okay with my Spanish. Spanish is my first language. I learned English when I was pretty young, but they told me that I would be okay with Spanish. I had been using the app Duolingo. I don't know if any of you know it, but it's on your phone. You can just use it whenever you have free time. And it encourages you to keep going, and had kind of procrastinated on it because people told me that I would be fine with Spanish. But I think the only things I knew at that point was menino, menina, boy and girl, and eu não sou um tiburão. I'm not a shark. I don't know how helpful that would be, but I took off my headphones and I was trying to listen for these 3 phrases that I knew. Nobody was talking about sharks around me. And so I was trying to stay calm. I didn't understand anything at all. I could not pick up anything. And I was trying to stay calm as the realization was slowly hitting me. I really didn't know this language. And I got onto the plane, and the woman who was sitting next to me, she told me that she was an English professor, and that I told her, I'm about to go learn Portuguese, do you think I'll be okay with Spanish? And her response to that was, I hate Spanish. And she said she hated it because she lived in southern Brazil, between the Argentinian and Brazilian border, where they speak Portuñol, or a mixture between Spanish and Portuguese, and she didn't like that. So she told me, if you want to learn Portuguese, you need to learn Portuguese. You're not going to learn Spanish. I was like, all right, that's fair enough. So I finally get to the airport. I'm lugging around my luggage for the next 3 months, right? And then I got a little bit lost. I had a piece of paper that told me where I needed to go, but I didn't have a phone. I couldn't really talk to anybody, so I kept going up to airport staff and using all the 2 languages that I knew, trying to find out where I needed to go. After 3 hours, I finally found my group. I was sweating, I was carrying around my luggage, but I finally found them. And they were really welcoming. They took us to orientation. We were able to stay a little bit still away from the larger Brazilian society in a nunnery while we were doing our orientation. And then the day finally came that I was going to meet my host mom. And I had to learn a couple of Portuguese phrases while I was there at the orientation. And then, but still nothing. And then my host mom came up to me, and I knew how to introduce myself, but right away she just gave me a big hug and a big kiss, and she just felt so warm already. We didn't really need to talk. I was kind of worried because I didn't really know what to say to her, but she kept talking to me the whole time she was there, and she wouldn't stop, even if I didn't really know how to reply. Something that I understood from her was that it was her 2-year-old son's birthday, and that she was really excited to go back to her home to go and celebrate his birthday. And so I was like, all right, that's exciting. I get to meet some of your family. And then we parked the van. They dropped us off a little bit down the street. There was a lot of traffic. And then from down the street, I'm able to hear a lot of music. And we're getting closer and closer to her apartment. And all the music is coming from her apartment. Her son was turning 21, not 2. But they were having this huge party for him. It was all the neighbors. They had all this beer, all this food. I was meeting everybody in the neighborhood at that point. And she took me into my room, she put my stuff away, and then she took me to some of her friends and she sat me down with them. And at that point, the phrase now that I knew really well was, "Desculpe, eu não falo português." Sorry, I don't speak Portuguese. So I had that down, right? So she sits me down with her neighbors, and I know how to introduce myself. I say my name, and I tell them, "Desculpe, eu não falo português." And the woman just laughs at me, and she tells me, "Of course you do, you just said that in Portuguese, what are you talking about?" And just continues to talk to me all the more. They kept giving me beer. I think, eventually they figured out, my Portuguese wasn't that great, so they just kept giving me beer and food. So I was trying not to be rude, so I kept taking the beer and food. And then, as it happens, during late night parties, when you're drunk, you meet up with a stranger and you tell them your deepest hopes and dreams. So that kind of happened. Ended up having a conversation with this other man who was a younger man around my age, and he told me at the beginning, speak slow. You can use Portuguese or you can use Spanish if you don't know it. Just speak really slow, and I'll speak Portuguese to you. And we'll get through the conversation like this. And he ended up telling me his whole life story from birth to where he was at now. And I was, able to pretty much understand the majority of it, and I did the same. And I think that night was just really a precursor to my whole time there in Brazil. I would meet people on the bus, and they would hear that I had a little bit of an accent, and they would try and talk to me more, and they would be encouraging and say, your accent isn't that strong, keep going, that's so cool, you're learning Portuguese. And so that really helped me learn the language. By the end of it, I was able to do a qualitative study and, interview 10 different people, all in Portuguese. I stayed there by myself for an extra 2 weeks. There wasn't that many people that I met that spoke English, so it was always in Portuguese, so I felt pretty proud of myself, But the time came, I'm not from Brazil, I'm from here. I had to come back home. And then, so I was really excited. It was a bittersweet moment, but I was really missing my family. And then I get on the plane, and the people next to me, they're also from the United States, as it will be. And they start asking me what I was doing. I tell them I'm about to go home. I was studying abroad. And he's like, "Oh, so are you originally from Brazil?" I'm like, "No, I'm about to go home from the United States." And then, this question, the "where are you really from" question, that just keeps going on until you know your whole family lineage. But he just kept going. And I think at that moment, it just kind of hit me, the irony of that. I hadn't been asked that question in the 4 months that I was in Brazil. My Americanness was never questioned in a foreign country. No one made fun of my accent. No one told me that it was unprofessional or made me sound stupid at that point. And then it just, I don't know, just the irony of I was going back home where I had felt more like a fish out of water than where I was coming from. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Tony. Today my story is dealing with U.S. custom, and it's the second time I come to the United States. And before I used to come to the United States, and when I go to the border and I try to see how much I carried for the money, but at that time they asked me the question, my mind just went blank, and I just forgot how to see the number in English, and because my purpose of the trip is for the university, and the custom stuff just make fun of me are you a university student? How can a university student cannot speak the number in English? And she even make fun with his colleague. His colleague respond oh, he might be a bad student at school. And at the time, a translator just come out and helped me what do you want to say? And I just told him, and he helped me to translate all stuff I told. And I just got bothered, and that's it. And the second time is for the winter break. I come back with my mom, and in the plan I fulfilled the declaration card. I fulfilled I didn't have medicine and all stuff illegal for American. And when I just got there, they asked me what do you have to declare? And I told him nothing. I didn't carry nothing. And then the case just goes through the X-ray machine, and we almost get out the door, but they just stop us. Wait a minute, can you just bring the case back and we can go through it again? And the second time they opened the case, and at that moment I just shocked. My mom carried all the stuff, medicine, the secret numbers, custom stuff, go over all the stuff, even for the medicine, it's all the Chinese. He used the phone to look over, and he took a lot of stuff. And at the moment, I just told them I didn't carry nothing. And at the moment they opened the case, my mind just went blank. I feel I'm the fish out of the water. And they took an hour to search our case and take out all stuff out of the case. And finally, we go through the process. We just got out. That story. Okay.
Hello. Just for the record, I really like buttons, and I asked Megan if I could have a button, and she told me I'd have to tell a story instead. So, thank you so much, Megan, but also you're welcome. So my story starts last spring, and I was taking a leadership class here at DU. And what we were doing in the class was we were asked to form these groups and work with nonprofit organizations in the Denver area in order to just kind of do some sort of good community work. And one of the groups that was in my class, they decided to work with a homeless shelter. And what they decided to do was collect tampons here on campus and in our dorm in order to donate. And I thought, wow, this is a crazy cool idea, right? All the time we think about donating food and clothing, but tampons, right? So obvious. And I really wanted to help. So what I decided to do was that I went to Safeway to go and buy some in order to donate. And just for the record, I have never bought tampons before in my life. And so I go to the Safeway and I go to the aisle, and the first thought that hits my mind is, wow, there are so many options. And then the second thought that hits my mind is, wow, these are really expensive. And, for something that's so essential and so necessary, right? It really didn't make much sense to me as to why they were so expensive. And then it hit me wow, especially for college students, right? When in the world do you have the time and have the money to buy these products? And I was like, well, what if these products were available for free here at DU? And I'd love to tell the story about how I got from there to now. But basically, long story short, over the past year, I created a task force through USG, and basically our whole intention was to basically bridge that gap for DU personnel in regards to feminine hygiene products. So we started putting these. You've probably seen them around campus. We put them up on Sunday, and we have successfully put them in every single academic building here on campus, and we're currently in the process of refilling them every week. So we're very, very proud of that, and we're very, very happy with that success. And while our group is really, really happy, by the way, I should say this, our group's called the Happy Tampers. Pretty happy. And so we were very proud of our success, but honestly, it hasn't been very easy. I faced a lot of doubt and a lot of negative feedback from my peers and from strangers as well. I mean, let's face it, right? A male working on a tampon task force, it's a little weird, I get it. So saying that I was playing a little bit out of my element is kind of an understatement. And I know that people see that, and they see me. And when people ask me what I'm afraid of the most, the answer I give them is that I'm really afraid of making people feel uncomfortable. And that comes from being a man. And honestly, I get it. And regardless of how much of a difference I'm making, regardless of how much change I'm doing, I know what it looks like. I know what I look like. I know that my interest in tampons makes people feel very uncomfortable. And honestly, that terrifies me. It really does. Listen, I get it. I'm male, I'm brown, and I'm Muslim, and I'm interested in tampons. It's a little weird. I get what it looks like. And I get what it looks like when I tell people that. I get what it looks like when I walk through campus with one of those in my hands. I get what it looks like when I have to walk into a woman's bathroom in order to fill them up. Even if I'm being very polite, being very modest, even if I'm with another woman on my task force, I get it. And contrary to what you might think, saying, "Hi, my name's JJ, do you mind escorting me into that women's bathroom so I can fill it with tampons and liners?" doesn't always get the warmest response. But I think the hardest part about all this has been even having my friends and people I care about question my judgment about my project. Tell me that my priorities are out of whack, that I must be gay for doing something like this, that I'm doing it for the fame, for the attention, that I'm doing it as another way for girls to like me. And while I don't necessarily blame them, because I can see where they're coming from, those were the few moments when I seriously considered stopping what I was doing. There are a million other ways to make a difference, right? Why did it have to be tampons? Something like feminine hygiene is taboo, and it's really something only of the interest of women, right? So why bother? It made me feel very vulnerable and scared. I mean, forget fish out of water, more like fish on a frying pan, really. Like, I was really, what in the world was I doing here? I had no idea. I really had to think about it. But there's something about really being out of your element, being really vulnerable, that really made me clear as to what I needed to do. Really out of my comfort zone, that made me think and really, really question, seriously, why was I doing this? Why tampons, you may ask? Because I give a shit, that's why. And more importantly, this has nothing to do with doing what is important, but it has everything to do with doing what is necessary and doing what is right. Sure, menstruation does happen to be something that impacts about half the population, and mostly just one gender. But as I see it, feminine hygiene is not just a girl problem, but something we all should care about. As I see it, ensuring that all DU personnel who have to deal with menstruation have the products that need it is something we all should and need to give a shit about. It is necessary for the betterment of our peers, our friends, our family, our loved ones, friendly strangers too, and of course the betterment of DU. While our task force is currently just working in bathrooms, our goal is to eventually have boxes in the HCC in the same array and the same variety as I saw in Safeway a year ago, but for free. When I started this project, I told myself and I told our task force that money was never going to be a problem, and I stand behind that. And thankfully, thanks to USG, we started off with a small amount of money that got us started, and we'll thankfully have enough money to start for next year, and hopefully moving forward as well. And I know that the next step for this project will be difficult and trying, and I'll probably face a lot more opposition and negative feedback and ridicule. And you know what? That's really okay. It's actually really funny. I'm gonna go off script real quick. I actually just saw a voicemail, so we put a little phone number underneath each bin. I actually got a voicemail from the Vice Chancellor of Enrollment at the admissions office asking us to give some explanation as to what's going on. I mean, they're just tampons, so we'll see how that goes. If I've learned anything, though, over the last year, there really is something about being out of your element and being vulnerable that really gives someone, it really gives me a lot of energy, a a lot of enthusiasm, and a lot of heart, and a lot of determination to accomplish anything. Sure, people may say that my priorities are out of whack, and I'm doing this for the fame, or whatever else may come across their minds, but really, who cares? The doubt and disapproval from others is nothing but fuel for me to work harder and fight the good fight. I know that regardless, I will continue to work hard and utilize my platform and my privilege to, again, not necessarily do what is important, but do what is necessary and do what is right. Thank you so much.
He did come into my office and start talking about tampons one day, and I was like, what? Can you open the door? Because I need somebody else to hear this with me. And so I'm very proud of everyone. I'm very proud of JJ too for seeing this come so far. I want to read a quote that struck me. When we share our stories, what it does is open up our hearts for other people to share their stories. And it gives us the sense that we are not alone on this journey. So we want to thank you all very much for joining us today. We would like to ask all of our storytellers and folks who contributed to our visual art projects as well as the digital art projects to come and join us up here. We'd like to give you a round of applause for, come on up, this is your time, you're up, you're coming up.